Morning, everybody. So, Steve Thomas, General Manager of the RSGB and Convention Chair, and I don't very often actually introduce the speakers at this event. I'm normally running around, but this is one I particularly wanted to do, so it's been an absolute pleasure working with John since he's taken over as President. John will be speaking about his experiences of 50 years of RSGB membership. Thank you, sir. And then talking about the wide range of services that are offered to members. So this is why I'm particularly passionate about this talk as well. So John was licensed as GI4BWM in 1973 and became very active on HF, although in recent years his interests have been mainly in the VHF and UHF bands. He became involved with the repeater scene in the late 1970s and has continued that interest over the years. His interests are currently in the digital voice area, although he is interested in all aspects of the amateur scene. He's also an active RayNet member and a controller of the local group in Northern Ireland. John has been a member of the RSGB for 50 years, served as committee chair level for 12 years, and in April this year he was installed as president of the RSGB. So, thank you, John.
Years later, someone said, well, how long does it take to be RSGB president? I said, 50 years. So there you go. So I want to tell you a story, as they say, or someone used to say, I want to tell you a story. Really, first of all, about where I've been in amateur radio, how I worked with the RSGB, what it did for me, and then what it could do for you, and what perhaps we all can do for the RSGB. So it's a bit of a story in general. So, why is it not changing? Well, it will change if I do this. Of course it won't. Well, it was working. I'm going to the other laptop, will we? Yeah. Maybe it'll go again down. Oh, it's maybe, hold on. Yeah. Didn't like sitting there for too long. So first of all, discovering amateur radio. I got in a rather strange way into amateur radio way back in the early 60s through DX TV. Band 3 had just opened up, and whenever our local TV stations closed down, I used to be able to watch Winter Hill and all sorts of places whenever the local Black Mountain ITA station closed down. And the old Tescar C was well known in those days. Irish television was just launched around about that time as well. We had television obviously in Northern Ireland, but Telefisharan in the south just opened up, and they had Band 3 right across Southern Ireland, and there was some great reception at times from Cork and all sorts of places like that. So I really was interested in this, and I used to tune around the VHF bands at all sorts of times to see what was going on, particularly when there was a lift on and you were getting good signals from dear knows where, maybe down in Killarney or wherever. And used to do that old converted TV sets with permeability tuning. If you moved the cores in and out, you could tune right across the band. And I used to tune around in Band 1 as well. And the top end of Channel 5 in Band 1 is round about there, which is very close to 4 meters. And one evening I was tuning around and I heard these strange sounds and people talking and wondered what this was. It turned out there was 2 local amateurs on 4 meters. And it turned out that I actually knew one of them. I didn't know he was a radio amateur. I didn't know what a radio amateur was even at that time. So I visited him and asked what was going on. He told me all about it. He started to loan me magazines and things, and eventually persuaded me to get one of these. I don't know if any of you remember what that is. B44, yeah. Radio. Yeah, used on tanks and anti-aircraft batteries, I believe. I don't know if you realise 70.26 AM, does anyone know where that comes from? It was a strange choice of calling frequency, and the reason 70.26 was chosen was the crystals that were available for this set were 7806.667. If you multiply by 9, you get 70.26. That's actually where it came from these surplus MOD sets. It was quite good. I only listened, of course. I couldn't transmit. I wasn't licensed. I couldn't possibly transmit. But perhaps on a dummy load, I had a few tests, you know. And people started to loan me magazines. I'm sure a lot of you will remember that. Along with that, and Shortwave magazine, and that got my interest in amateur radio going. And eventually, 1968, a long time ago, I got past the RAE at a place called Dungannon, which is right in the middle of Northern Ireland. And then I forgot it, because I got a new job. I got married. I started to learn Morse with some colleagues. Actually, I had a lot of ex-merchant marine colleagues who were very proficient in Morse, and we had a place at this new place of work I had. We used to sit upstairs at lunchtime and learn Morse, and I also used the RSGB records. I'm sure you all remember the records, which you could play at different speeds. And January 1973, I eventually passed and got the Morse test. And in February of that year, I got licensed, and I joined the RSGB. That's the place of work, way back in the early days, which actually was like the Department of Telecom, of TELS, the Home Office details. It was the Northern Ireland variation. Small place in those days. It grew up to a very large place, as you can imagine, with the troubles in Northern Ireland. And my wife will kill me for that. And then eventually there was the Morse slip. I actually found the Morse slip the other day, still had it, and that was a much coveted thing in those days. And my first amateur license, they sent me a letter saying if I sent them £3, they would send me a license. And there was the first license. And if you notice, it's GI4BWM, none of this hash nonsense. It was actually GI4BWM. And that's why some of us are a bit, tad annoyed about certain things that are going on at the moment. But however, we digress. And my first amateur mobile license, do you remember those days? £1.50 for an amateur mobile license. Yeah, £1.50. And my first mobile rig, which wasn't really that terribly mobile, but it actually was the old Pi Vanguard, which drew about 25 amps and flattened your battery very quickly. But actually it was a fine piece of gear. That was the multi-channel version, but actually that was a fraud. That was a single-channel version with a multi-channel control head. And to change channels, I had a pocket full of crystals. You took the cover off and changed the crystals. So that was amateur radio. That was the place I worked, and that was what it was like in 1969, just at the start of the troubles in Northern Ireland. And if you notice, actually, on top, maybe you can't see it with this pointer, but there's a sandbag gun emplacement on the top there, just in case the enemy came over the hill, shall we say. So interesting times. It was a hotbed of amateurs. There was nearly everyone in the place was licensed, including Barney Patterson. I don't know if any of you remember Barney, GI3KYP. Terry Barnes, GI3USS, and Ian Kyle, GI8AYZ. All past presidents, and almost everyone else in the place was licensed. In fact, that's why I got the job there. So amateur radio gave me my profession as well. My RSGB life through the years, been all sorts of I belonged to all the various groups, Belfast RSGB group, which was a very, very active group in those days. It's still active, but I think maybe not just as active as it was in those days. We met in Short Supervisors Club, which was Short Brothers, the famous aircraft manufacturer and missile manufacturer in later times. And Barney Patterson actually facilitated that because he, at that earlier days, was a senior engineer in Shorts. And we had great times there. Mid-Ulster RSGB group, which is still very active as Mid-Ulster Amateur Radio Club, really. But in those days, they met in Banbridge and Banbridge Academy. And we had great times with field days, all sorts of things going on around the province. GI3FFF, the Ballymena Radio Club, and others. We got together and had a contest group called the Mafia Group, Mid-Antrim Federation of Independent Amateurs. Mafia. Yeah. Mafia in Northern Ireland seems about right, doesn't it, Philip? Yeah, it does indeed. We had great times and all the various contests that we took part in. Many days in the hills of County Antrim, and I'm still in the hills of County Antrim, as some of you have seen recently, whenever Ben Lloyd, our newest board member, coaxed me into going on a soda expedition onto the hills of County Antrim. That would actually, yes, I'll say no more about that, because he's coaxing me again. I don't know if you recognize anyone in this picture at all, because there's some people I don't recognize, but that's me at the back there in the middle, a rather young-looking person. On the left-hand side, I think that's John Sexton, I think, who was president way back. I think that's that. And Jack Smith sitting at the controls, and the man with the microphone. Anyone know who that is? We've been trying to figure out who he was. He's an RSGB, somebody from RSGB headquarters in those days, but I'm not entirely sure who it was. And the man on the right, Bob Barr, GI5UR, one of the secret listeners, actually. He was one of the secret listeners. And that event, that was GB3 MKB, the celebration 75 years since the Marconi Kemp experiments between Rathlin Island and Ballycastle. And we celebrated that by having a special event station in Ballycastle and on Rathlin Island. And to make it special, we actually ran 70 SEMS TV link, the first outside broadcast from Rathlin Island back to Ballycastle on 430 megs. So that was a really interesting event. And if anyone later on can figure out who all those are, I'd be interested to know. I know at the back, John Saxon, I think, Bill McGonigal, GI3 GXP, who was the council member, as it were, in those days for Northern Ireland. Me next to that, John Branagh, GI3 OIRL, Frank Campbell, who I can't remember his call sign, GI3 PDN with the glasses, and GI5UR, as I say, secret listener. Bob was a character who could tell you some tales. You could be right. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Don. Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering. Wasn't just sure, but I think. Yeah, and I think that definitely is John Saxon, who was the not licensed, but he was the president in '73. Yeah. And I was coaxed into belonging to all these various RSGB groups and all the rest of it. I was coaxed into a repeater building because I was a professional engineer as well, and built GB3 and a good old faithful Storno. I don't know if any of you remember the old Storno base stations. Those things worked under any circumstances. I remember dragging one out from under the remains of Lurgan police station. It was still working, but that's another story. And then UL, GB3 UL was the UHF one, and that's more modern kit that was brought on in later times. Then that's the sort of gear we were working on in those days, and shades of things to come on the right-hand side. The first Motorola gear coming in the time we started to introduce digital comms in Northern Ireland. Any Pi people or Pi Philips people here will recognise most of the other gear, the old FX 4000 series and the MX series FXs, etc. So L700 link in the middle on 1.8, 2.3 gigs, which is one of our early microwave link equipments. So interesting times. And then some air support. Did a lot of work on air support as well. You maybe can't see it very well, but the registration on the plane is GBSWR, which was perhaps, someone said, was specially chosen for radio buffs, but that was the police support plane in Northern Ireland. And then in later days, the EC-135 Eurocopter with a very sophisticated radio fit there with all sorts of interesting equipment aboard, which we may or may not talk about. And then 2005, I decided it was time to pack it in, and I met this lady, which was very pleasing and very interesting. And at my retirement due, that's Barney Patterson, actually at my retirement due, GI3KYP, who was my mentor really on all things radio, both professional and amateur. So what did the RSGB do for me? Well, first of all, it gave me a hobby and it gave me a career that I loved over many years. I started professional radio in 1969, just at the start of the Troubles, and I finished in 2005, which is when the Troubles finished, so there's some sort of correlation there. I'm not sure. Yep. Or so my wife says anyway. And after that I went into consultancy and worked in Eastern Europe and had great times out there in all sorts of interesting places, including Serbia, which I'm going back to, I believe, very shortly. Yep. The RSGB protected and extended through representation the spectrum that I use. I mean, think of the work bands, all the rest, all the various things that have happened through the years. So, you know, we have got value for money out of the RSGB. And it continues to provide me with a wide range of services, video products that are the envy of others, and we hear other societies telling me that all the time. When I talked to the RSGB, or to the IRTS president the other day, and he said they would love to be able to provide the things that we do, and other countries are the same. Even the ARRL, I think, look enviously on some of the things that we do. Isn't that right, Steve? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. They mightn't say it, but they may think it when they're talking to you. Yeah. And volunteering. I've done a bit of volunteering as well. I was chair of the ETCC for 12 years. And that was, at times, interesting, as many of you will know, working in repeaters, which can be a little bit challenging at times. And sometimes I went on the odd field trip. That was GB3PK back in the day, which was installed on the top of Tower Head, and what was a toilet belonging to the local radar station, RAF radar station, was closed down, and they left the toilet building behind, so the local group installed a repeater in it. That's what you do, don't you? Interesting thing about that one is that the power supply came from a local farmer, and the local farmer at times was friendly and at times he wasn't. Sometimes it would go off and all the rest of it. So challenging, but a great spot and really overlooking Scotland. So give great coverage in Scotland. Maybe not so good in Northern Ireland, but it was excellent in Scotland. Volunteering in Rainet, that's involved in a rescue down in the south, and challenge walks, all sorts of things, and also as controller of medical comps of the motorcycle races throughout the country. That's at Northwest 200, which some of the people in the audience will know all about, having taken part in it. One of the fastest road races in the world. Road racing is crazy. The speeds those guys are doing at the Northwest 200, 208 miles an hour down the straight, which on two wheels is absolutely daft. And that's why they need medical communications. Only as someone said to me, there's one particular post that we have there on a straight, and someone says, no point having anyone there. I said, why? He says, because if anything comes off there, they'll be 2 miles down the road before you pick them up, and that does sometimes happen, unfortunately. And what can the RSGB do for you? Well, we are the National Society. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we represent members and non-members. People forget that. I think the amateur community sometimes forgets that we're there to represent them as well. And unfortunately, dare I use the term, we have a lot of freeloaders as well. We would love them to join and find out really what we can do for them. We belong to IARU, and they are our international representatives, if you like. We provide representation to Ofcom. I mean, if we weren't there, I don't think that Ofcom would talk to particular amateurs. We need to be a national body of some substance and able to represent the interests of the amateur community as a whole. And as I say, I often remind them, we're representing all amateurs in the UK, and that's one of our strap lines, representing all amateurs in the UK. And we send experts to international meetings. And as I said, I have the privilege or otherwise of going to Serbia in the near future. And as someone has just told me, we have a 3-hour bus drive from the airport. So I'm not entirely looking forward to that on the Serbian roads, but that's another story. We're dedicated to advancing the science and practice of radio communication. Of course we are. Making the hobby accessible to everyone. Not young, old, disabled, whatever, able-bodied. We need to make it accessible, and we hope to do that. We work as part of the IIRU to safeguard the spectrum. As often said, when you look at the amount of spectrum we have, it's significant and it's valuable. And whenever you see the price that Ofcom put on spectrum, we are lucky to have the amount that we have, and there's ever increasing pressure on it, and people are always looking enviously at it. You'd be surprised at the envious eyes that are looking. They're looking at HF at the moment as well. I mean, there are all sorts of things going on in HF. Well, it's not just in the amateur bands, but very close to them. And we have threats with high power link stations, data link stations, just outside some of our bands. That's something we'll have to look very carefully at. Running many kilowatts just outside some of our bands. So we're looking very closely at that. We represent a large number of clubs, groups, and societies, and we hope to do that and keep doing that successfully. And we hope to work closer with all these clubs as well. And we need to increase the awareness of amateur radio. We need to make sure that people know what it's about, make it interesting to them, make sure they are aware of what it's about and what it can do for them. We do a lot in publications. We provide RADCOM, of course, that you all know about, and some that people are not so aware of, basics, and RADCOM Plus in electronic format. And dare I mention, in electronic format, we hope to have RADCOM in proper electronic format in the fairly near future. Not just the sort of HTML version that we have at the moment on the net, but we hope to have a proper, fully featured RADCOM. And of course, what we have to look at, and there's a challenge as well, look at the pricing structure. Can we make it membership cheaper if we're going electronic? I don't know. But perhaps we can keep the price from going higher. But I leave it to other people who are looking at the sums at the moment, not looking at anyone in the front row here, but, Yeah. And of course, our license manuals, the Foundation Intermediate Advanced Full License Manual, great publications, and we provide a lot of them, as you say, 250 book titles. Someone once said, the RSGB is just a book club. It's more than a book club. Look at the other things that we're doing as well. And we provide all sorts of advice. We provide the regional team, planning advice, EMC, Spectrum, Forum, 10 different things going on. One of our highlights over the past couple of years is the tremendous work that's been done on exams and remote invigilation for exams. That obviously came out of COVID, was born out of COVID, but something that was probably going to happen anyway, but wouldn't have happened just as quickly. But COVID certainly brought it on. And we have a good system there. We have lots of videos on how to do things, building experience, foundation videos, all sorts of things. Lots of social media. People sort of denigrate and sort of poo-poo social media, but I find it's very powerful. I look at our social media pages all the time, and at Twitter and all the rest, or X or whatever I'm supposed to call it these days. But and there are lots of things going on there, and people are keeping in touch very much via that medium, those media. So, what are we doing? Videos, 300. Whenever I got the slide in the first place, I said 250. It's now up to 300. Largely because of Ben over this past few days with all the soda expeditions. So the count has gone up considerably, and there's all sorts of other stuff in there. Great material. Look at our YouTube channel. If you haven't looked at it, be sure to look at our YouTube channel. There's a lot on there, a lot of very interesting stuff, and stuff that you may not think even is there, but it is. There's a lot there. We provide forums for important subjects. For instance, the consultation. We did a lot of work on that. There were 3 main forums. There was also ones within, inward-looking ones, talking to our own committees about it, and then outward-looking ones for everyone to comment. And those I hope, proved very interesting to people. And we got a lot of good feedback from those. I think they were pretty successful. The EMF calculator, tremendous bit of work done by John Rogers and his team. Tremendous bit of work. And really, I would commend that to you as well. I mean, where would we be without that? I mean, I don't think Ofcom wanted to impose this, particularly on the amateur community. They had to impose it on everyone for health and safety reasons. Whether it was totally required or not is another argument, but at least we've got the calculator, and it shows you that in most cases you can operate, maybe not a kilowatt, as we're going to have maybe, but certainly you can normally operate normal sort of level powers without much difficulty at all. We have a lot of experts about who can give advice on all sorts of things. Do all that, represent, as I mentioned, all these things already, give guidance on spectrum matters. We do a lot of work on NOVs, though a lot of that may be changing, it may be getting less, particularly if some of the stuff is liberalised, as Ofcom are proposing. But I think talking to Ofcom, they're probably still going to ask us to do some coordination on these things, so it won't just be a total free-for-all. We advise on planning issues. There's lots of advice available there, and hopefully we get around a lot of the issues that crop up. And we provide, Steve and his gang provide all sorts of information, propagation information and advice. And advice on all technical aspects of the hobby. You'll always get an answer. I'm going to say if you ring RSGB headquarters, but ring anyone who's involved and you'll get the answer. If RSGB headquarters don't know the answer, they know someone who does. So they will hand it off to the appropriate person. What do we need to do now? Well, there's a question. Where are we? We've had a strategy for a number of years. I must be honest with you, we haven't done much about it. But we've looked at the priority items out of that list that was originally generated back in the 2017 to 2022 strategy, and we've taken 4 points which we really do need to move forward on if we're going to do anything for amateur radio, and there they are. Growth of amateur radio was the first one. Obviously, if we have no amateurs, we're not going anywhere, so we need to grow the amateur population in general. That's being altruistic and then being a bit selfish perhaps. Out of that, we need to grow the membership of the RSGB. The one thing begets the other, hopefully. Spectrum and licensing, doing a tremendous amount of work on spectrum just this past while. Maria and his team did a lot of work on the consultation, and you were all involved. I hope you all responded. I'm sure you did. And I'm sure Ofcom are now furiously trying to compile all this stuff. I think they brought it on themselves a little bit, and the type of form that they use for responses has proved quite difficult for them to compile the information. But however, they're getting through it, and I hope we'll see the results. I think they're talking about probably seeing something in December, and probably the first fruits of it early in the new year, but we shall see. But it's been an interesting time on spectrum recently. And ensuring the continued financial stability of the society. Chris, our treasurer, will be talking a little bit about this later, but actually it was all doom and gloom a time ago, but it's actually improving and stabilising quite well. But we need to continue to do that. There's lots of work to be done to continue to do that. How do we grow amateur radio? We need to increase awareness. We must work with schools and STEM projects. I'm passionate about working in schools, getting people young, getting them when they're young, getting them involved, and making sure that they stay involved. And all the various projects that are going on, STEM projects. British Science Week was another great initiative we've got involved in over this past year or so, and it was very successful this year as well. I need to look at the pathways to licensing. Are they purely RF, purely practical? Are there other ways in? Are there software ways into radio? There's lots of software radio out there, so we need to look at the pathways to licensing, and in the future, probably look at the syllabus as well and talk to Ofcom about it too. So lots of work to be done there. And one thing, I think we'd all agree on that, amateur radio needs to be enjoyable. We really need to make it exciting to young people, so that they don't just lift a mobile phone out of their pocket and say, why do I need amateur radio when I've got this in my pocket? But whenever you remind them that depends on radio, and we need engineers to design the radio part of these things, then, oh, there's radio involved. We've done a lot of work on increasing awareness already. We're working in schools. John Hislop and his team have been working. He's got his STEAMettes going, and working with all ages as well. The more mature members as well. And we've lots of youth projects going on, Science Week and all the rest of it. And the NRC, not to be forgotten, a very useful and a very important part of what the RSGB does, I think. Some people wonder what it does for us. I think it's a great facility and does a tremendous amount for us. And there's an older stage there. That's Martin working in the 1940s reenactment there. I think that was a rather good event too. And there are some of the younger ones, McCullagh High School. They're tremendous, doing great work up in Scotland. And there's young Millie who appeared on Radcom not that long ago, all working on GB22 YOTA. Some great initiatives there. And lots of other schools getting involved as well. We have an ARIS contact coming up now in next week down in Broadstairs in Kent. And that'll be a great bit of showpiece for amateur radio as well. And getting young people involved, getting them enthused. Spectrum and licensing, we already talked about that, the amount of work that's going on there. The opportunities from the license review. We have lots of opportunities, I think, especially whenever we're going to be able to demonstrate and let people actually use gear more appropriately rather than just, you can pass this message and that's all you can do. They'll be actually able to operate. And I think that will be something that will attract young people and not be a lot of people just standing or sitting in front of radio sets. They'll actually be able to sit people down and actually operate properly. Have to continue our work with all the various regulatory bodies and amateur bodies and make sure our spectrum is used to the fullest extent as well. If we don't use it, we will lose it. There are plenty of people out there wanting to grab it. The growth of amateur radio, how do we do that? We're going to have a growth workshop to involve all stakeholders. Terrible word, stakeholders, but all the people who are interested. That's HQ staff, volunteers, the board, and members as well. So we need to really get together, see what needs to be done to grow amateur radio and get a lot of suggestions going. There's been a paper written already, and I think we need to develop that and take it from there. We need to set measure. If you can't measure it, it's no good. So we need to set sort of measurable goals and reasonable objectives. For instance, grow the membership by X or whatever, and something that you can then measure in a year or so and see, are we going in the right direction or do we need to refocus? We need to keep engaging with all the external influencers, with all the other people who are interested parties in the radio spectrum. And as I said, amateur radio needs to be attractive. We need to make it attractive again. I think, again, people have got very blasé about communications. It's so easy that we need to make amateur radio exciting and attractive again. And the membership of the RSGB has got to follow. We need to engage better with our members. I think we've got disconnected perhaps from our membership and perhaps some of our volunteers as well. We need to get together and make sure that we engage properly again. We must be attractive to exam. We must make them want to get in there and do the exam. Don't make it so easy, but make it attractive to them that they want to do the exam. We need to and once they do the exam, we need to keep them in the hobby. That has been a problem as well. I think at the moment we're only capturing maybe about a third of the people who pass the exam. We need to get that much higher. There's no reason. If you pass the exam, you got all the bother of passing the exam. Why wouldn't you join the RSGB to get the benefits of the RSGB? And past members need to be reminded of what we do for them as well, because we've probably changed over the years and are doing things now that we didn't used to do. So people need to be reminded of what we did in the past. And we need to review what works and what doesn't work. We already mentioned that, and Chris will say a few words about that later on. We need to keep our costs under review. We need to do the right things, make sure that we're doing the right things, and maybe stop doing other things. We need to make the best use of technology to make sure we're serving our members in as good a way as possible. And we may have to make difficult decisions. There may be some things we have to stop. Maybe. We're not sure. But there may be other things we need to do instead. So there'll be swings and roundabouts there. So what did the RSGB do for me? And what we can do for you? What could you do for your fellow amateurs? We need more people to join the board. We need more volunteers. We always need volunteers. And we're very pleased to hear from anyone who would want to be involved. So if you do want to be involved, talk to some of us. Thank you very much, and I invite any questions. Right behind there, Steve.
Thanks very much for a very interesting talk. Mike Naylor, G4CDF. I just wonder if you've managed to engage with the media, the TV people, for example, BBC. Could you get any programs on the television to try to expose amateur radio to the general public? Have you tried that?
We've done quite a bit of that recently. Heather Parsons has been involved. I've been involved, actually. Longwave radio, I don't know whether you saw the article on longwave radio, and we were asked to pass comment on it. Actually, I got criticised for it because I chose to show some of my old kit, and somebody said, "That's not a modern amateur." I said, "Yeah, but I'm talking about longwave radio."
I mean, they have all these programs which, you know, appeal to the general public, but how about something like a contest? You know, just a half-hour program just to show what the sort of things we do. Is that feasible?
It's getting the airtime, I suppose, is the problem.
I would be happy to talk about it at length.
Yeah.
I promise I won't, but I'd love to talk to you about it. Just if I can throw some numbers in, John, if you don't mind.
Sure,
for
go
the
ahead,
media
Steve.
Activity. The piece that went into the Times about 6 months ago, they came to us, and that actually reached 46 million people. So if we put effort in, that's the sort of return we get, and we do that. We work with the BBC, we work with the media, we do a lot more than people realise. But turning those people into amateurs is then the next trick.
That's the,
right?
yeah.
Steve, the biggest media at the minute, and that's not just, sorry. The biggest media at the minute, and that's not just for young people, is YouTube. The amount of people that don't watch TV anymore and watch YouTube. Can you give any figures off the top of your head? Some of the viewing figures we had for some of our YouTube stuff?
Oh, you can see YouTube ad.
Yeah. But that's the best media. That's the best.
Fairly large numbers there, Philip.
Just
Yeah.
asked a quick question. I'm not trying to put you in the spot here, John.
You would never do that.
I'm Philip, MI0NSO. Been volunteering for the RSGB for a long time. You mentioned there, what more can we do for our members? Maybe digital radcom, whatnot. Try not. There has been a price increase recently for membership, and rightly so, because it hasn't increased in years. But what can we do to try and stop it increasing, mainly come down? I hear rumours there may be new membership benefits coming. Does anybody know anything about that, or can we talk about that? I say rumours. I'm not saying it come from a good, reliable source, but it come from a good enough source. And I think it's ridiculous if it's through public liability insurance for individual members. I think that's ridiculous if that is being considered.
I think they are rumours, Philip. Just rumours.
Yeah. I'll talk more about it.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's one thing actually that clubs should remember. Providing liability insurance is a big part of what we do, and it really, the value for money you get there.
They're talking about, the rumours are talking about for individual members, something like if you become a member of RAINET, you pay a fee, you personally are insured. I don't know if you can.
No, don't see it. Yeah.
Well, some people are getting themselves muddled up and thinking this is coming as a membership benefit.
No, I don't think it's.
Well, the membership cost as it stands wouldn't buy. The membership cost as it stands wouldn't actually buy much of the personal insurance.
No, certainly wouldn't, Nick.
Anything. So
Yeah.
we'd put that rumour
Yeah.
gently to sleep.
Yeah. Actually, when you think of the membership, it's remarkably little. £60, 61, whatever it is, compared to what you pay for other things. It really is. It's just, I think people have got used to being so low that a bit of an increase. And so, but actually, our price is, as we've looked at, is linked to RPI when you look at it over the years. So it hasn't been a crazy increase at all. Anything else?
My exercise walking across the room.
Yeah, hi. Great convention. I'm Theo Paradise Hurst. I work in electronics engineering. And I've had a pretty sort of varied career, from working in buildings and working for GEC. So yeah, I suppose my interest to be here and listening to what you say is because, yeah, I've got grey hair now. Most people in the room, with a few exceptions, don't. And you know, when I see how, I guess, society in the UK and how electronics, which we were really instrumental in, you know, it's the most magnificent and world-changing hobby and interest, and how inaccessible it's becoming now, because Tandy's, Maplin's, all the high street places where you could find things and build things and buy things are gone. So yeah, I think it's probably echoing the same concern across the membership, that actually a lot of clubs and societies, whether it's vintage cars and there's expertise and people are going, disappearing, passing away, and there's a lot of lost knowledge of technology, innovation, really exciting stuff. And so yeah, I think there may be an opportunity for the RSGB to start to embrace some of the other sort of areas, because we're all experts in electronics. We've got knowledge of hi-fi, we've got knowledge of domestic vintage equipment, things which are trending and things which are quite popularised. And you look at things like, say, the repair shop, and again, that gets a lot of momentum and interest. And it could be that the RSGB could perhaps branch out into catering for amateur electronics as well as radio. It could be that because it's radio, it's very particular, but actually a lot of what we do is associated with electronics or technology or applications or installations. So I just think there might be an avenue or an opportunity to open up the membership to sort of hack space or maker space environments where I know it is an add-on to certain hack spaces already, and there is a sort of a subdivision for radio. But I think there is opportunities there to try and widen it.
Yeah.
And that could be to open the remit into electronics as well as making, you know, just general electronic devices as well as radio.
Thank you for that. Actually, the repair shop, who's it? The guy in the repair shop is an amateur, isn't it? The guy who fixes the radios?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. In fact, I saw him fixing one the other day, and oh dear, I remember fixing one myself many years ago of the same set. Nearly on time, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Anything else?
Thank you, John. And Mervyn, G4KLE. This man here keeps ringing me up and saying, I've got another volunteer slot for you. So I keep getting volunteered for so many different things. I'm down at the NRC, and I can tell you that the people are coming to the NRC, and we have lots of people coming in throughout the week. And it's always nice to see people who have come out of amateur radio, and we bring them back in again. Because some people have lost all their details, but we are very, very happy that we've got a lot of the old
call books.
books. We can go all through all the call books and find their page, give it to them, and off come and quite happy to get that back. So yeah, we do bring people back in. And people who don't even know what amateur, because they come in with, say, I've got this mobile phone, you know, I can do everything on this. Yeah, but it wasn't for all this lot, you wouldn't have your mobile phone. And they realise, and I'd say, when they start taking out all those satellites, you'll come back to us and say, can you send me a message?
HF will be like, yeah.
And I can say, I can do a bit more for you and send you a message. It'll cost you a bit more.
Yeah.
But yes, so it's what I have helped put back into amateur radio, which is a lovely hobby.
Thank you, Mervyn, and for your volunteering. Thank you very much, everyone.
I believe we've hit time. Thank you very much, John. I always find it fascinating to actually talk to the people that volunteer for the RSGB and find out what's behind and where their career has been. So thank you, John, very much.
Thank you.